Welcome to Out in It, where we discuss our hunting and fishing adventures, our successes, and our failures.
Hey everybody, welcome into another episode of Catch and Bass, Out in It, presented by Catch and Bass. I'm here with my buddy Bat Boyd. Matt, thanks for hopping in with us today. Matt really enjoys jig fishing and fishing in general, but he's super excited to hop in today and talk to us about jig fishing. So we're excited to have him.
I appreciate you having me on.
So Matt's from Cherokee Village, and he said he's about an hour east of Norfolk, which is a lake that I enjoy fishing quite a bit. And Matt says he loves to fish a jig, which if you're fishing Norfolk is a good place to fish one. So,
well,
Matt,
you can catch a lot of fish. Catch a lot of fish in Norfolk.
Yeah, well, man, if you want to just start, what about a jig do you like? Honestly, especially on lakes like Norfolk.
It's just the fact of how versatile the jig is. You know, you can go take, here's an example. We got swim jig right here. You can swim it, hop it, drag it. You can just do everything with a jig, and you can imitate any forage that you want. Shad, crawfish, and bluegill. It's simply one of the most versatile baits in bass fishing in general. In my opinion, I can do a lot of things with it and only have, just this one in general. This is the baby structure jig by Strike King, and I can drag it, hop it, and I can get a lot of bites. And with the jig, you more than likely get a bigger bite with it as well.
Man, I agree. So the funny thing is that is something that I've spent a lot of time throwing as well. And the thing that I've learned is you can never learn too much. So I was excited to kind of see what all you had to say about jig fishing. But man, that when fishing tournaments, we fished in a club last year, and man, we would throw a jig all day. And now there'd be days that we might get 10 bites on it, but the bites that we got were always decent fish. We didn't seem to ever catch small fish with it. And then with a jig, it always seems like you have the possibility of catching a good smallmouth too, which if you're fishing any of the lakes up in north central Arkansas, Norfolk, Bull Shoals, if you catch a good smallmouth, it can make a huge difference in the tournament that you're fishing in.
Oh, 100%. And a few weeks ago, you know how high the water is on Norfolk right now. It's, well above full pool.
Right.
And I'm out there taking a half ounce jig. Let's see here. I think I got one, but I'm taking a half ounce jig and just threading on just a regular trailer, a little chunk trailer. And I'm flipping these trees and determining, what depth they're in. And I was flipping into these green trees, catching smallmouth, in areas you'd think you'd catch a largemouth, and I'd be going down a bluff wall and I'd be catching largemouth in spots you'd think a smallmouth would be holding. It's just that Norfolk is definitely a place that you can do a lot of different things and have different results on different areas.
Man, yeah, and honestly, Norfolk for so long, man. I remember we fished it. I live in Mountain View, if you know where Mountain View is, so it's not far up the road from here either. And man, I remember one year, we had fished it 3 or 4 or 5 times, and dude, we just weren't having any luck. And finally, one night we were out there and we were fishing, and we fished our butts off and didn't catch anything. And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to say it. I hate this lake. and then finally, dude, the last few times we've gone, it's just been the complete opposite. It just seems like that we've gotten more comfortable fishing it, and it's unique too because they're Bull and Norfolk are both deep clear-water lakes, but they do not fish the same at all. Not even remotely the same.
30 minutes apart, but they'll fish totally different. It's astounding to think that.
Yeah, man. And so same thing we had our club tournament last year. We were at Bull, and there were guys that were fishing. There was another club fishing out of Norfolk, and this was in the fall, and it was just the bite was just terrible. I mean, I think on a 2-day tournament, I think 20 pounds won, like 2 10-pound bags, and it was just real slow. And they said at Norfolk people were just tearing them up, and they said that the fishing there was a lot better than the fishing was at Bull Shoals. So.
Yeah, Bull Shoals, it's always been the more popular lake because of the sheer size. And in my opinion, I think Norfolk doesn't get the amount of pressure as what Bull does. So I'll pick Norfolk, even though it is a little closer. But Norfolk, to me, I've always done better there. Bull's always had my number, except for last year. I actually won the state title for the kayak division for Arkansas on Bull last year.
Well, that's awesome, man.
And of course, dragging a jig.
Yeah.
My main bait was a football jig and a crankbait.
So when what if you were gonna tell somebody who's never thrown a jig before, who's trying to learn, like if you were gonna go look at a place like Norfolk, and you don't have to tell me a specific bank or area or whatever, just like if you were gonna tell them, if I was gonna learn, this is where I would start, and this is what I'd do.
If all things, I will go with if I was going somewhere, I'd probably go up the river and fish those main creek channels. And I would go something kind of an Arky style or that Cobra head, because it's a bait that you can do everything with. It might not do a lot of things really well, but it's going to do everything good enough. You can do it with everything. Especially this one is the Strike King Baby Structure Jig. 3/8 ounce is a perfect size. It's heavy enough to where if you're fishing a little bit deeper water, it can slowly go down. But if you're fishing shallow water, you can, if it's high enough, you can fish the buck brush, fish, little cuts. And it's a small enough profile where you can get a lot of bites and gain confidence. That's the big thing, is to gain confidence in this bait, because there's going to be, like you said, there's going to be days you might not get a lot of bites, but your few bites you get are going to be your above average, really good class bass. So to gain confidence, I always suggest people a finesse style jig, which in return is a very thin skirt material and just a real light wire jig. And trailer wise, any cross style bait you like. There's not a perfect trailer for a certain jig. It's all dependent on the conditions. Like if you're flipping a lot, people like using rage crawls, rage bugs, or sweet beavers. I kind of add that into my jig fishing. I'm kind of implementing the same ideas. So if you're dealing with real high bluebird skies, go with the trailer that doesn't have a lot of action. And of course, windy, low light conditions, have something with a lot of kick. And based on the trailer, it can change the rate of fall on your jig as well. So kind of getting into that is just rage crawls has been my number one jig trailer for a long time. It's a simple trailer. You can throw it on. I've thrown it in 40-degree water, and it's done well. I've done it all across the country. You never can go wrong with it.
Man, and see, I love throwing a football jig, but man, I'll tell you, a half-ounce football jig at that. But I'm telling you, if you don't start out with, like you're saying, an Arky jig or even a 3/8 ounce football jig, and you're sitting there dragging that half ounce on the bottom, and all you feel is rocks, and you don't have enough confidence to distinguish a bite from a rock. And another thing too is having the right setup, because if you're not throwing a medium heavy rod or a heavy rod with some 14 15 17 pound test, whatever, you got to start getting up there, and you're throwing too light of line and too light of rod, and you feel like you're getting glued to the bottom with that jig, you'll get so frustrated. And that's a big tip that I would throw out there too, is like, make sure you have the right setup, because you can get frustrated really, really fast if you can't distinguish what a bite is.
Yep. And that's the thing I've learned too over the years is it's real true. You have to have a lot of stuff dialed in if you're really wanting to get into it. I'm addicted to jig fishing. I've got like 2 or 3 boxes full. I've got 5 or 6 rods dedicated to certain jig types. And for me, I'll just when it comes to like dragging, like you said, a medium heavy is a perfect action. You don't have to have a real expensive rod, just any medium heavy. You want something with a little bit of backbone to allow that jig to hook drive through the fish. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to have the most expensive setups. I like Falcon. I've been becoming a big fan of Falcon rods, and I use their Kara series, and they have amazing rods. And of course, they have a low budget Buku, and I think they have a new Ultrex is their cheaper model. But I think it's just the fact of a medium heavy, but it has to have a little bit of bend, in my opinion. You don't have to have a broomstick of a rod for these jigs. Just with some of the finesse jigs or football jigs, the weed guard is real light. So you don't have to have a lot of pressure driving the hook home. So you can have a lighter rod and not worry about it. But for line size for jigs, I don't go no less than 15. 15-pound test is the minimum for me. And I go all the way upwards to 20, 25-pound test, depending on where I'm fishing at.
Right. Yeah, especially flipping, obviously. But so man, I'll tell you one of my favorite things, and you kind of talk about it right off the get, was fishing bluff walls. Man, I love going out and throwing a jig on a bluff wall and just dragging it, because typically if there's a bluff wall, there's some kind of ledge real close by, and you're going to pull that, especially obviously football jig, but you're going to pull it right off that ledge, and dude, I've never had a fish hit anything harder than a jig falling off a ledge.
And
I mean,
it's one of my favorite bites for sure. I love just throwing a jig down a bluff wall, especially when it comes to like those pre-spawn fish when they're getting up there ready to do their thing. And I just love taking something, and I usually go with like a 5/8 ounce jig. I like something heavy when it comes to that situation. I want something, yeah, you want them to know what it is and where it's going, but I want something that's quick and fast that just drops real quick, so it just causes that reaction strike more
right.
time than not. And like this one right here, this is made by Outcast. This is a tungsten jig, but it's in 5/8, so it's a real smaller profile, real fine jig skirt material, but it's shooting real fast. So those bass don't have time to react to it, and it's just more times than not I'm getting bit. It also kind of depends on the mood of the fish too. It's something I have confidence in, is that heavier jig, big
Right.
profiles, imitating a big bluegill, and those bigger bass will more than likely hit it.
So what is something like this time of year, real hot, that you're doing with that jig that maybe you think people overlook, or maybe just something that's real obvious?
Honestly, I think the one thing I've learned is snapping the jig off the bottom. A lot of times guys are out there when it's real hot, they're wanting to move it slow. They're just being real methodical with it and just making sure they're touching every piece of structure. I like going opposite. Either I like going to a 3/4 sometimes, and if I need to, I'll just snap that jig off the bottom. And sometimes, just for some reason, those bass are keying in on that jig, and that jig just all of a sudden just shoots up out of the way, and that bass will lash out on it. They're looking for something that makes it think it's getting away from it, and you're just playing a cat and mouse game at times.
It's so funny how much more you hear that now, especially after people started using forward-facing sonar and minnows, and they've realized that with any bait, it doesn't matter what you're throwing, that if you let that fish sit there and look at it, and you don't make whatever your bait is react like a prey, if you just things that we didn't even realize for the most part, if the chance of you getting bit when you make your bait look like something that's trying to get away from them go way up.
Yep. And Also, too, a lot of your bigger fish, a lot of times they're reels, they're singles. There are a lot of bigger fish that just stay by themselves. You can also trigger them with a bigger jig, and you think it's another, fish or something that's coming into its territory, and it gets aggressive by doing that as well. Those big females or bigger males will also sit by themselves. You put that big jig right by them, they're going to feel like like they're threatened by it, so they're going to go in and try to kill it, which is something I've learned a lot too over these past couple of years.
So have you, obviously, this is something that I talked about on my last episode as well, but I'm curious with jigs because, man, I throw jigs a lot, but I haven't experimented much with it. I kind of have my one little area that I really feel comfortable with, and that's kind of what I stick to. And I've seen the Bitsy bugs. I know they have real small jigs and trailers and things like that. But I've seen some of the opposite, but I haven't personally myself done it. Have you thrown some of the bigger jigs with the bigger trailers yet? And do you what's your personal opinion on that?
I've actually been doing it a lot here lately. I've been doing it since the fall of last year, where I was on the road for work. I was working in Wisconsin, right off the Mississippi River, and we got off early one day, so I decided to tie on this jig. I don't have one with me, but it's the Picasso old school hand tied dock rock. It's what it's called. It's a mouthful, but I got it in a half ounce. But the skirt material they use is rubber material. It's rubber and a silicone skirt combined, and it's just a big bulky profile. And the trailer I used was the Yamamoto Flapping Hog, not the big one, the 3 3/4 inch. And just looking at the water, it's just a big chunky profile, and I don't know why. And I would start pitching it in areas where I was throwing usually my finesse jigs or my lighter tackle stuff, and I was just getting more and more bites. And I've just started really getting confident in those bigger rubber jigs now.
Dude, that's crazy because, and once again, I talked about it last time, but man, it's insane that, and I think it's because of presentation. The presentation's different, but it's insane how you can go out, and especially in a clear water lake like ours, and say, you know what, I'm going to upsize everything I'm throwing, and how much of a difference that makes. But then you look at the other side of that, and it's like, well, they've probably seen that same thing that you've thrown 100 times in front of their face 100 times today. They've seen that same half-ounce football jig with the with a little, crack and crawl on the back or whatever, whatever little crawl you're throwing. And whenever you go out and do something just a little bit different, change up the presentation just a little bit to where it's something they haven't seen that they're not used to, then it changes everything.
Yep. And I think you and I can agree, as the year goes on, as we go into the fall, we notice a bunch of the smaller bait fish and everything else. So in our minds, we need to go smaller, smaller jigs, smaller swim baits. However, I want to go to complete polar opposite, because everybody that fishes and that bass fishes can agree fall of the time of the year can be tough, and everybody's throwing the same things at these fish, and they're so used to, your regular size jigs, and they start downsizing. But I want to go the opposite direction. I start throwing bigger stuff. I think that's what kind of helps me out, kind of gain confidence, because I know I'll be throwing something a little bit more different than what everybody else has. And it's just the way I've really learned how to fish the fall and have more success over the years.
And it makes a lot of sense too, man, because, in the spring and in the fall, the fish are trying to fatten up the best they can, because in the spring, obviously, they're about to spawn, and then it's going to get hot. And then in the fall, the winter is coming, and they feed still in the winter, but they like to fatten up before winter gets there. And so that does make sense, man. But I'll just tell you, last year during the fall was the toughest fishing I've ever had in my entire life. And I don't know what we were doing wrong, but it just was like, if whatever decision we were making every time was the wrong decision.
Yeah. I'd have to contradict you, because last year's fall fishing was my best one I've ever had.
Yeah.
Like a complete polar opposite. man, and especially on bull, it's like I never had that good of success out there. I was, dragging football jigs. That was working really well, and then I just decided I needed a big bite, and I wanted to go up shallow, and I started flipping a big jig off the creek channels. They weren't, bluffs. They weren't like 20, 30 foot, but they were about 12, 13 foot of water, and I was flipping a 5/8 ounce jig, and I was catching my better average largemouth by doing that. And I don't understand. I didn't understand how or why I was getting the bites I was getting, but I think it's just the fact that the forge was there, and I just perfect conditions, got there at the right place at the right time.
Do you enjoy, like, so you hear a lot of people, and you call it a creek channel or a drain or whatever people want to call it, just some inlet of water into the lake, because everybody from different places call it something different. I don't know why, but if you talk to people from Texas, Louisiana, they call it a drain. If you talk to people, you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
But have you had a lot of success going into creek channels and getting actual into the channel of the creek and fishing? Um,
Um,
Dragging a jig, or
I've had success doing it, and I usually have more success after the main, like a rain comes through, and I like fishing, working my way up to that drain that's coming off the main lake or off the bank into the water, and kind of work my way up, because as that rainwater comes in, sometimes it can get muddy, and find that water line, and you can find those bass staged by that water line when it gets muddy like that. And I work my way up through that creek channel to understand where those fish are at, and mainly if there's forage around, because if the bait ain't there, the bass ain't gonna be there.
right, man, and that is the hard part too, especially in our lakes. Is like the the bait fish are not very big in the north central Arkansas lakes, and so you go in there, and if you find a ball of bait fish, it's not like in other areas where they got these massive balls of uh, gizzard shad or something like that. They're
Oh yeah.
small, and you don't have, even if you find them, there's not 10, 15 bass stacked up on them like you see in other lakes, and so it is hard to find a good school of bass, especially if you're summer fishing, which is what everybody always talks about. Like, you go out, you can find a school, or you can go out and find a school of bass, and it's like you hear people talking about that. I mean, you're probably like me. You watch as many videos as you can, and you go out and you try to find that, and it's just I don't ever find it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree. And with the way Norfolk sets up too, is the the way the bait fish is over there. It's like a lot of times you're not finding like you said, those massive schools of bait. You're finding little pods here and there, and we have to deal with a lot of stripers too. And I would say like somewhere like Greer's Ferry can set up kind of like that. There's a lot of offshore humps on Greer's, and
Right.
I found times where the bigger smallmouth love grouping up on them humps, and they're just sitting there waiting for the bait fish. And if you can find that right spot, it's usually you can catch 8 to 10 smallmouth in per school.
Man. Yeah, and I bet that's a lot of fun when you do it too.
I'm waiting to go back. I enjoy Greer's Ferry. There's not a lot of big fish in there, but man, you can just wear your arm out catching all those fish you can.
Yeah. Man, have you seen so I'm trying to work out to get the guy on, and excuse me for not remembering his name, but the guy who's going to be the director of the new lunker program in the state. I'm trying to get him on the podcast, but I've heard some news circling that they're about to do some to reintroduce grass back into Greers Ferry Lake and work hard on the fish habitat there. And I'm hoping that's true. And then I also heard some rumors that they're talking about putting a slot limit in there, and I don't know if that's true or not. But I'm hoping they're going to do something, because man, it's one of those lakes that, like, the way that it sets up, if you fish north of the Narrows if you go up to the top of the Narrows and below the Narrows, it's like two totally different lakes.
Yep.
Like one's a really deep, clear lake, and then one's not necessarily muddy, but it's got much lower visibility than the bottom end of the lake, and the water's a lot more shallow, and all kind. I mean, it's like two totally different lakes.
Yeah, I can totally agree. And Greer's does have the potential, like a lot of the lakes down south, where you can have 10-pounders or just not more or less 10-pounders, just better class fish altogether. You can have that habitat there. It's willing to put in the work and have the resources to back it. I know a few years ago I fished that lake for just a local club, and this whole flat was covered in milfoil. They're putting the work into it. You could see the grass growing. It just takes time and the resources to build this fishery where it needs to be. And I think with this new program they got coming in, it's going to help out a lot. Start implementing the ideas of what Texas has with their fisheries, and you can see the same results.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And dude, and hopefully we see it pay off, quick. I don't know how long programs like that take or how long it took for them to actually work out in Texas, but I'm glad that Arkansas is trying to do something different, because with the number of lakes that we have, it's honestly a really good opportunity to draw in new people and tourism in ways that maybe you weren't before. But I'm excited to see what happens. I had a question for you that's slipping my mind right now.
It's all good. We can sit here and rabble on. It doesn't matter, man. Talk about fishing. That's all right.
But oh gosh, what was it? Oh, that's what I was going to ask you, dude. So there's a lot of lakes in Georgia, and I believe they've started implementing no wake boats. Have you seen that?
I have not.
And so I'm curious. I'm curious if the state of Arkansas would consider things like that, and like dedicating more lakes to being fishing lakes. And people are gonna. Somebody's gonna hear this right now. I'm already riling somebody up, I'm sure. But man, even if you could figure out how to take different sections of the lake, because a lot of these lakes, anyways, there's areas where they're not really very good for boating, like recreational boating anyways. If you could take some areas and block them off where it's dedicated only to fishing, because dude, those wake boats destroy fish habitat. I mean, just absolutely destroy it.
And I 100% agree with you. And more times than not, they're annoying to me. Yeah, you can own a wake boat, and I just can't stand them at times. I know people will tell me they can't stand me either, but I'm not going to sit there and bounce up 6-footers on a smaller body of water. I understand that you have a right to use your boat. It's an inconvenience for a lot of the anglers, and I would like to see that happening. It's just, I don't really have much to say because I'm not that much into the topic. I'll just go fish somewhere else when there's a bunch of wake boats out there. I'll just load up. Like with me living in Cherokee Village, we have the 7 private lakes right there, so I can trailer up and go to the lake, just a few miles down the road, and not deal with wake boats on the bigger lakes. It's just there ain't.
And
no
I've heard
point.
about some of those lakes. Are they pretty good? The ones over in Cherokee Village?
Some are good. A lot of them are really overpopulated. So you're catching a lot of real skinny, unhealthy fish. But this past year, I caught 2 over 7 out of those lakes. One on a jig and one on a jerkbait.
Man, just to have an opportunity to catch fish like that, and dude, it's so rare, especially in Norfolk and Bull. Like,
yes.
The quality of fish that there are in there is good. Like if you catch a fish, especially in Bull, it's probably going to weigh 2 pounds at least. I'd say, like on average, you're probably catching a 2-pound fish, but you're probably not going to catch a 7-pounder.
Very rarely will you ever see one that's over 7. And and the prime time fishing, and bull, it's like here lately, you're seeing a lot of good 5-6 pounders, but you're not seeing those fish that were in the upper class of 7s, 8s. Very rarely you will ever see a 9. But last year in Ouachita, when the Bassmaster Open was there, we actually got to see Arkansas represent some big fish. It took a 10-pounder to take the big bass of the week. It,
Wow.
it can show the potential of what these lakes can hold. It's just finding the people that are willing to put their hearts into it.
Right.
And with this new legacy program they got coming for Arkansas, I'm really excited for it. I'm really hoping they can take what the Share Lunker program did for Texas and start doing it with Arkansas and just build these lakes to where for years to come people can enjoy it and go after just trophy largemouth and smallmouth and hopefully spotted bass too. I like to catch one of them like out of California, them big boulder bar spots. Them 11
Yeah.
pounders look like fun.
Yeah, dude. Or man, honestly, if we could just get some like over in some of those Tennessee and Alabama and Georgia lakes, just
Oh yeah.
constantly catching 5 and 6 pound spots would be a lot of fun too, man.
I would love to make a trip to Lanier one year and just fish it, pre-spawn or at least springtime, and just get tired of catching 3 and 4 pound spotted bass. That's what would be so much fun because they just fight so hard. They're so mean, but I love them.
Yeah, that dude, and that's what's hard is, and I didn't even realize until the last couple of years, but largemouth are much harder to catch than spots and smallies because dude, they are so aggressive.
Yeah, without question. Smallmouth and spotted bass are the 2 pound for pound hardest fighting fish you can find out there, other than like bluegill and stuff like that. Smallmouth and spotted bass to me will always outrank a largemouth, even though the largemouth will of course get bigger. I like getting into a 3 or 4 pound smallmouth and just have it rip and drag. That right there,
Yes.
especially the rivers around where we live at, stockpiled of smallmouth, and they're good size too. Like they're not like northern smallmouth up in New York where they get 5-6 pounds, but a 2 to 3 pound river smallmouth to us is like that's a trophy for us. That's a
Right.
good fish.
Yeah, dude, I enjoy it, man. Especially, that's how I grew up was creek fishing, just going down with a little spinning rod and catching some smallies out of the creek, little brown bass. Just even the little ones, they're so much fun to catch. But man, is there anything else you want to touch up on about jig fishing, or just anything else before we start winding down here?
I kind of talked about everything I wanted to. I enjoyed the episode, and hopefully, just later on, we can keep on doing episodes talking about stuff upcoming events and stuff like that. I
Yeah,
enjoy.
man. Yeah, dude, I'd love it. I'm really trying to grow the community here, and I think Arkansas, as far as the bass fishing community, has the potential to really be great. And I'd like to connect a lot more people like you, man, because dude, there's a lot of guys who are passionate about it, and I think if you can get a bunch of people together who are passionate about something, and not only inspire others and help other people learn, because I'll say this every time I'm on here, if I learn something, then that means somebody else learned something, and that's always good. But man, we have an opportunity to reach out and get a bunch of guys together and really help grow the sport in the state. And dude, I love fishing so much that, dude, I want everybody to be able to enjoy it as much as I enjoy it.
That's same thing for me too. It's just you, and I think you've noticed it too. There's been a lot of negativity in this space in general, in fishing in general. I think we need to kind of step back and just look back to say, where should be doing something that makes us happy? This right here is what everybody had done as a child, and they just loved it. There's no point in being negative about certain things, about how certain people fish. Just go out there, have a fun time. Don't worry about what other people think of you. Just go out, have fun time. It doesn't matter
Man,
if you're in a tournament or just fun fishing.
man, I agree, and I think a lot of that is, and this is like opinionated, obviously, but I think a lot of it is like you grow up and like the generation before us is just different than we are. and you get a lot of those guys that you'll go out and you'll talk to them, and man, if you ask them what they're doing or ask them for advice, they are not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you anything.
Oh no.
And then you got these younger guys like us and some of the kids that are younger than us who are like, man, honestly, this is what I'm having success with. And the difference is like we're doing it because we want people to have fun. Like we want people to enjoy and learn and grow. And if we're not helping those people grow, then especially even if you're tournament fishing, like if those people are not getting better, then it's not making you get any better either, because then you're holding information away from people and they're not growing. I mean, it's not going to force you to get any better if the people that you're fishing with don't know anything. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of times. This is the thing I've always learned about fishing is you're always learning. You're never at the pinnacle of it. You're always going upward. You are always learning something. There's nothing in fishing where you can't learn something. I learned a lot, just the past couple of years. I'm starting to become real good with a jerkbait. I've really understood it. I've got a whole box of Smithwick rogues. I've never had a rogue before. I've only had one or two. Now I've got a whole box of them. I love throwing them in the winter because I learn when it's good and understand what the action is, what causes the fish to react to it, and when it's not good. It's just you're always constantly learning. I'll reiterate it. It's consistent. That's the only thing in bass fishing is how unconsistently consistent it is. That's how it is. It's like a different day. Every day is different. The bass can change their attitudes within the tip of the hat.
Right.
And you have to learn, you have to adapt to what the fish are doing. And
absolutely, man. And dude, and obviously a lot of it too, the negativity is like because all these guys spent all these years learning all that stuff and worked so hard. I mean, lots of days on the lake, the conditions, fishing, all that. And now people can go out and figure something out with forward-facing sonar. They can at least figure out where the fish are at and all that, the depths and things like that within seconds, and see how they're reacting to certain baits and make changes based on reactions that they see, rather than you're going out there and you're making decisions until you catch fish, because used to they didn't have the opportunity to see, oh, well, I threw this bait over, this bush and that bass just flew out of there after it and things like that. Now people could see that, whereas 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, they weren't able to do that.
Yep. And I would also add too is we have so much information now compared to what 15 years ago had. The internet has really, really brought in a lot of information that wasn't available to a lot of fishermen. So, and like when I was growing up, just a few years ago, I was watching YouTube. All these guys on YouTube were teaching people how to fish certain techniques instead of you going and reading an article and like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be done. Now you got videos, more articles. You have online instructions of how to do certain things, and it helps out a lot of people that don't have the time to go out and learn everything, which time on the water is by far the number one important thing. If you're wanting to understand how fishing is, go out every day you can when it's not, terrible weather, but go out and just go learn water. That's it. I think that's the number one thing people take for granted is time on the water.
Absolutely, man. And before we wind it down, how much do you go out and run side scan? Because I've heard so many people tell me that they go out and run side scan and just learn about their lake. Like, do you probably know who Kaz Anderson is?
Oh yeah, I know Kaz. I don't know him personally, but I follow his stuff.
Yeah. I mean, he talks about it. Jacob Wheeler, everybody knows who Jacob Wheeler is. Jacob Wheeler talks about it. And all these guys like Dustin Connell, they preach and preach and preach about going out and just running your side scan. Don't even, even if you don't bring a pole, don't even bring one to cast. Like, go out and learn your lakes. You'll learn more off of just running that side scan in one day than you ever knew about that lake. And Me and my fishing partner, we haven't done that a lot, but it's like, man, it makes you curious at the very least to go out there and try some of that.
Oh yeah. Oh, hold on one second. I gotta grab my charger. My phone's about dead. Oh, crap. Oh, wasn't too prepared for this.
Oh, you're okay.
There we go. But yeah, I mean, side scan without question is one of the most advanced features in fishing. Yeah, forward facing sonar really brought to life, but side scan, and I would probably say 360 imaging is so much more useful than what live scope can ever be. Because with side scan, you have such a array of distance to work with, and you can just drop a waypoint on like a boulder pile you never seen before off a main lake point. And then, of course, if you have Humminbird 360, when you're fishing, you can line your rod up with the transducer and like, oh, there's a laydown log right there in the 10 foot of water. Cast bait over there. And like with forward facing sonar, it's only so limited to, just straightforward or pan optics, but it's only going to go in a small cone. 360 and side imaging really opens up that window.
Right. Right, and even just learning, like, and a lot of people that I've talked to are like, man, forward-facing sonar is great to go out there and shake a minnow and all that. You hear people talking about that all the time. They're like, what people are not telling you that's great for, though, is you're working down a bank and you can say, hey, look, there's a rock pile. Hey, look, there's a lay down and things like that, to where you're not just working down this bank blindly casting. Because if you're not on a bluff wall or something like that, where fish are naturally going to be stacked up, where you're in a creek or something, it's like, hey, go hit all those high percentage areas, bounce out and go cover some more water, instead of spending an hour working down that entire crankbait casting over and over and over again. Go hit those high percentage areas and bounce out and go to the next creek arm, or go to work the next area that you had picked out, and then you can come back to that area later that day. Especially tournament fishing, if you've had a chance to practice fish and you've seen, oh, they're definitely fish in these areas.
Oh yeah. And with forward facing sonar, I've learned it's more of a tool for me where I look for more structure than I do targeting those lone fish. I like using it to find weed edges and, brush piles, rock veins that drop off just a hair. More times than not, I'm using it to find structure, and I'll just fish it. I don't even worry about looking at the screen most of the day, unless I'll admit it. I'll shake a minnow on them. I don't care. If it can catch me a fish, I'll throw it. I'll use that forward facing sonar to find structure more than anything, and then of course I'll turn it away when I know the cast, and I'll just keep on going how I usually do. And then if it doesn't work out, I'll just move on to the next spot.
Oh man, and I'm definitely an advocate for forward-facing sonar. I mean, I understand the argument that all those guys have about um, how it takes away from experience and everything like that, because guys can learn all this stuff. But man, at the end of the day, I think that anything that helps people become better at something, like, I don't see any reason to have any negativity towards that. And we don't have to get into the whole like tournament and all the arguments about it. But at the end of the day, man, I think, like, I want to learn how to shake a minnow, or all the new techniques that people are able to do with that, because I want to become a better fisherman.
Yeah, I've gotten on the craze too, the forward facing sonar, shaking a minnow and doing all other stuff. And heck, I even bought some of the new fuzzy dice crap because I just wanted to try it. It's something unique and new that Japan brought over. It's just wanting to find a way to catch another way to catch a fish. It's not the fact that I'm just using it strictly forward facing sonar and that's the only way I want to fish. It's just, what's some ways I can take that bait and put it into my arsenal and learn. Maybe it's like going down the bank line and everybody's pitching a Texas rig beaver or a just Texas rig lizard, brush hog. I can go right in behind them with like a wacky worm or that little fuzzy dice, and like, why not just throw it up there and then bam, catch a good one. It's just
Right.
just trying to put it in your arsenal. It's constantly learning of what you can do with the next big thing is that people like saying.
Right. Well, and just to give you an advantage, like you said, you're throwing within a certain technique. You're just throwing something that's a little bit different than what everybody else is throwing. Like whether it's ultra finesse or power fishing or whatever. Like you just want to throw something that's just a little bit different because it might give you the edge, or might catch you one or two more fish, or even catch you the bigger fish. That those people didn't catch it, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day, especially for guys like me and you who enjoy tournament fishing. But you want to, we talked about this right before we started just a minute ago. It's like no matter what it is, like it's just that competitive nature. That's what you said it. It's just that competitive nature. Like you want to find something to give you the edge, and you want to be the best that you can be at it.
Yep. And the state of Arkansas, it's one of the more diverse states for fishing wise. You have so many different bodies of water that makes it different. You can drive 30 minutes, fish Norfolk, and then drive an hour or so, and you're fishing. You probably fish Lake Charles. You know how that place is.
Yep,
Lake
I fish
Charles,
Lake Charles.
Is a polar opposite lake, and you're dealing with stingy largemouth and flipping brush, and it's unique of how many different fisheries you can fish in Arkansas. It's really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. That's what makes it great, dude. And I look forward to diversifying like the different lakes that I fish, because honestly, like I've fished most all the lakes in north central Arkansas, but I've not fished hardly any lakes down south. And I'm gonna have to change that. But Matt, man, it was great having you on. It was a great conversation. I enjoyed talking with you. I'm gonna have to check out here, but dude, we're definitely gonna have to do it again sometime.
Oh, anytime, man. And more times than not, I'm just gonna be on the water too. I'll just turn on StreamYard right on the water, and I'll just be fishing. We'll just talk crap. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, dude, that sounds good. Good luck in your future fishing endeavors, and we'll talk to you again, bud.
Yes, sir. You have a good one now.
You too. Bye.